Hi, everyone. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year's as we do a holiday edition of Chalk Talk. I'm Matt Morris, joined as always by Scott Procter and Lucas Semb. And we have something special with the end of the football season coming up. We're doing a full NFL episode, and we're going to start in the NFC East, which just seems to be the gift that keeps on giving this year. Even though we already talked about who we thought was going to be our favorite to win, each of our picks is still in the running heading into the last week of the regular season. So we're going to go back and we're going to talk about it. Who do we think is going to win the NFC East? Scott, who do you got?
Yeah, Matt, I picked the Washington football team to win this sorry division a while back on this show, and, I'm sticking to it. They blew a shot to clinch on Sunday after Dwayne Haskins threw 3 interceptions before being benched, and Steven Sims went ahead and muffed a punt that turned into a touchdown. And despite all that, they still outgained Carolina by over 100 yards without their go-to wideout, Terry McLaurin, which tells me that this team has enough offense to complement their elite defensive unit. Antonio Gibson, J.D. McKissick, and Logan Thomas will provide just enough pop, I think, to allow Washington's 4th-ranked defense to control their game on Sunday to clinch the NFC East. Washington is 3rd against the pass, 5th in points allowed, only giving up 21 a game. Luke told me a couple weeks ago that the Giants had the best defense in the division. I wonder if he still feels the same way. But in case you didn't know, Chase Young is going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. He was just named team captain, which is crazy to think about a rookie being named a team captain in the middle of his rookie season, after Haskins was stripped of it. And he has 6.5 sacks and 4 forced fumbles on the season. On the defense, that's 6 in sacks. Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles, who the Washington plays on Sunday, Hurts has cooled off a little bit, and he has 2 interceptions and 6 fumbles since he took over as a starter. I expect more of those on Sunday night as the Washington football team, clinches the NFC East crown and makes me look good in the process. What do you think, Luke?
Yeah, I really want this one. I can't have you get something on top of me. I'm going to stick to my guns, and I'm going to say the Giants. The road for them to get there is laid out pretty simply, as crazy as this division has been so far this year. And I see they need 2 things to happen, and I see both things happening. Number one, they need to take care of business versus the Cowboys this weekend. The Cowboys have actually been on a tear lately, winning 3 in a row, but they're still coached by Mike McCarthy. McCarthy will not, earn them this bid. The Giants' defense is going to come out flying around and causing problems for the Cowboys' defense or for the Cowboys' offense, and they'll get their win. The Giants were on a 4-game winning streak, and now they've lost 3 in a row. So this is where I think they're going to right the ship. And, they had chances to pull away with the division, and now it comes down to this. I think this is where they tell themselves, hey, we got to do it right now. So that's the first part, and I think they're going to get that win. Second, they need the Eagles to beat the football team, and I see no problems there. Their QB situation is atrocious. Cutting the former first-round QB selection, Dwayne Haskins, in Week 17, when you got other things to worry about and focus on, and potentially starting Taylor Heineke for a playoff opportunity. The last time that ever happened was Dan Orton with the Bears, and you know how that happened. I mean, the upstart Jalen Hurts is going to lead the Eagles to win this, and the rest will be history. I got the Giants out of the East.
You know what has been hilarious? I remember at Thanksgiving we were all talking, and it looked like Scott had made the right pick. I was over because Cowboys were being the Cowboys. But you know what? Mike McCarthy's melon bit seemed to work out, and I'm going to go with, like you said, Luke, they've been on a tear. I'm going to go with the hot team, which is all you can do. You can really only look at the NFC East as what have you done for me lately. So I'm only going to talk about the last 3 games that the Cowboys have had, which have all been wins. In that time, as much, we always talk about the Dallas's offense with all those great wide receiver weapons, Amari Cooper, Ezekiel Elliott. Tony Pollard has really stepped up as a second, running back for that group. And that's all great. But what's really been interesting is the Cowboys' defense has finally stepped up a bit. Last 3 games, 17 QB hits, 15 passes defended, and 7 sacks, along with 9 forced fumbles, and they've recovered 6 of them. Add in another 4 interceptions, and I think this defense is going to give them enough to at least beat the Giants. Whether Washington wins or not is a different, question entirely, but will Dallas give themselves the chance to win this division? I think they will, going up against a team in the Giants that has been struggling. And last week, granted, it was against the Ravens, they looked very bad, and Daniel Jones is not as mobile as he has been because of the injury. And I think that with the pressure that Dallas has been able to give to the quarterback, that's going to cause some issues. The Giants' offensive line has given up 48 sacks this season, including 6 last week. I mean, overall, I think that Dallas has set themselves up to do something this last weekend and at least win the game to give themselves a chance. You know, they've scored over 30 the last 3 weeks. Andy Dalton is finally taking care of the football, only having 1 interception, and is allowing his weapons to do what they do, which is make amazing plays. And with the defense stepping up, I really think the Cowboys are going to beat the Giants. And give me Philly trying to make a statement to finish what has been just a terrible season for them, and watch Jalen Hurts and that Philly team end with a little bit of momentum, ruining a division rival's chances of making the playoffs.
If the Cowboys are able to make it to the playoffs this year, that's a crazy story, because they were getting dragged across the league at the beginning of the year. And if they're able to finish this miraculous story, honestly, they deserve it.
Yeah. I mean, it has been up and down. I think if Dak Prescott is healthy, this is a totally different conversation. I don't think they're doing any that much better. They might end up like 8-8, just because there are other issues on this team. But Dallas is finally playing hot, and coming into that last week, they have just as much a chance as any other team in this division, which again is not saying much. But the NFC East, somebody eventually has to win, even how hard they try not to. I mean, Scott, what do you think? Do you think Alex Smith is going to be the deciding factor for Washington? Is the quarterback going to be the biggest challenge for Washington this week, or do you think that defense is enough to beat Philadelphia and Jalen Hurts?
Absolutely. As a whole, I think health will play a huge factor in, deciding the NFC East crown this weekend. Not only Alex Smith, I'm hoping he's out there not only for this week, but in a potential wild card round, but Terry McLaurin as well. He's been in and out of the lineup. He is a huge part of what Washington does offensively. But I even want to, shift this conversation forward a little bit. Obviously we're talking about these 3 teams possibly winning a division and making the playoffs and having a wild card round that at this point kind of looks to be like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that they'll face in the first round if they can go ahead and lock in the number 5 seed that they seem to be trending in. And kind of just thinking about whether one of these teams can knock off the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is a super interesting question, I believe, because, when we posed this question a few weeks back kind of exclusively as a hypothetical, I was completely against it. I was certain the East winner had no shot of, upsetting an opponent in a wild card round, just simply because of how that division looked up to that point. But, now that the Bucs appear to be trending towards that number 5 seed, I really like Washington's chances of scoring the upset in this matchup. Obviously, again, if Alex Smith is able to suit up. And it's part of the reason why I haven't been sold on Tampa Bay as true title contenders. Tom Brady has played exceptional as of late, but he's old and he's immobile. Look at the Bucs' 5 losses this year. The Saints twice, the Bears, the Rams, and the Chiefs. What do all 4 of those teams and those 5 losses have in common? They all have a nasty pass rush. What does Washington have? One of the nastiest pass rushes in all of football. If you can get to Tom Brady and make him uncomfortable, the Bucs will probably lose. That's just how it's been all season. That's how they've operated all season. So Tampa Bay is on upset alert. When Washington locks up the NFC East, and if Alex Smith is good to go, I'm really looking forward to that.
Hey, when we talked about this a couple weeks ago on the show, I remember saying I remember mentioning the Buccaneers as one of the teams that I believed an NFC East team could knock off in the playoffs. And that still rings true. And I believe it's because, like I had mentioned that same week, they just play hard-nosed football. All these teams get after it. Regardless of record, they don't care. They just come out week in and week out, and they just play tough football. Regardless of the mistakes that they make, they get back after it on the other end. And, I just think one of these teams could do it. I think it's going to be the Giants. I agree that the football team could do it too. The Buccaneers are one of those teams that it's going to depend on which Tom Brady shows up. I know when Tom Brady and the Buccaneers played the Falcons just the other weekend, they were down at halftime big. And then Tom Brady comes out with a huge second half. The Falcons weren't able to make them pay for their mistakes. I think one of these NFC teams could. And that's where we'll see the Buccaneers potentially get knocked off.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when the playoffs come to fruition and it matters, Tom Brady can't be a tale of 2 halves. I mean, you can't play as bad as they did in that first half, like you said, Luke, and then expect to just turn it all on in the second half and think that they'll get away with it. And I feel like that's been the issue. Arians and Brady are still not on the same page with how they want to run the offense. It seems like they just kind of switch off. All right, we did it my way, so now we're going to do it your way. And it's just not, functionable. It just doesn't work. And as much talent as they have, I think that one thing that Tom Brady has shown is he doesn't like pressure, to both of your points. And Washington and New York can get after the quarterback. Dallas is showing that they can get somewhat after the quarterback. But the one difference also with Dallas, just to say my team that might, have the chance of going against them, they have the weapons. They're dropping 30. And you can go point for point with Tom Brady because you have somewhat of, comparable weapons with Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, Ezekiel Elliott, if you're going to run the ball. And also, Tampa Bay has not been able to really establish a run game. So if you're just going to have Tom drop back 50 times, it's going to be a problem. And so I think, each of our NFC teams
can't do that against Washington. Ain't no dropping back 50 times against Chase Young.
Here's the thing, though. I think the Buccaneers have established somewhat of a run game. I think Ronald Jones had a year where I would have never tabbed him to have this kind of season going into the year. I was not a big Rojo guy. And then Leonard Fournette stepped in pretty well as well, too. So, I think they've established a run game. I don't know that you want to rely on it. They're going to have to rely on Brady. But I think they have enough weapons where they'll be able to mix it up.
I just think they use it too sparingly, and I've seen games where they get away from it way too early. It'll be really interesting. But, we've been talking about probably the lower tiers of the playoffs. Let's move to the upper tiers, and let's move to the AFC, where obviously the Chiefs are leading the way. It is who can beat the Chiefs. But with going into this last week, there's some really hot teams in the AFC that look like they can really go up against the Chiefs pound for pound and might surprise some people down in Arrowhead. So, Luke, who is your pick to beat the Chiefs if you had to pick a team from the AFC playoff race?
Sure. I know I said last time that was the Colts, but I've been swayed by somebody, and that is MVP level Action Jackson, Lamar Jackson, who started the year agonizingly slow, but he's back. Their last loss was in week 12, and since then it's been the Lamar Jackson show. Every game, it's a multi-touchdown game, some on the ground, some through the air. And he's just so efficient passing the ball. He doesn't throw for 400, 300 yards like some other elite QBs, but he'll throw just as many touchdowns. And that's because when he does take those downfield chances, he converts on them. He doesn't need to make as many throws to get his stats up. And also, not to mention that he's averaging 65 yards per game on the ground. That's 16th throughout the entire league. That's more than Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Kamara, Chris Carson, James Conner, some big names that he's passing up on the ground. And with him playing at this level, the Ravens are hard to beat. But their defense isn't bad either. They lead the league in fumble recovery touchdowns. They have 25 forced fumbles. The next best team has 17. They have 2 safeties. They have a hungry group of hard hitters on defense like Calais Campbell, Matthew Judon, Patrick Queen, Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Peters. Collectively, these guys are going to challenge the Chiefs' throne. I believe it.
Yeah, no doubt, Luke. I like the Ravens. I'm really glad that they turned things around because it was looking really sad for Lamar and Baltimore early on in the season. But on this topic, this is a bit of a trick question to me because there are no real threats to the Chiefs in the AFC or the NFL or the NFL as a whole, for that matter, outside of Green Bay, as far as I'm concerned, who I think will meet Kansas City in the Super Bowl. But the AFC team with the best chance of knocking off the reigning champs is a team with the conference's best defense. That's Pittsburgh. Steelers fell off everyone's radar after their 3-game skid, an embarrassing Monday Night Football loss to Cincinnati, and rightfully so. But, their comeback win on Sunday, overcoming a 17-point deficit to the team Luke had as the AFC favorites to the Chiefs just a couple weeks ago in the Colts. That should put everyone back on notice. The defense is second in total yards allowed, second against the pass, second in points allowed, and they're first in sacks. They have the ability to get after Mahomes with T.J. Watt and Stephon Tuitt and cover things up on the back end as well with Minka Fitzpatrick, Joe Hayden, and others in the potential Chiefs-Steelers matchup if that's what we're talking about. On the other side of the ball, this is really cool. The Steelers are the first team in NFL history to have 5 different receivers with at least 5 receiving touchdowns on the season. Obviously, that includes Juju Smith-Schuster, Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, Eric Ebron, James Washington. All these guys can kill you and have a huge day on any given Sunday. The Steelers' elite defense and multitude of offensive playmakers still makes them the Chiefs' biggest threat in the AFC if such thing exists.
I'm not giving up on the Steelers. I believe that they're a good football team, but I don't see them having the firepower to beat the Chiefs. You're gonna have some losses in the regular season. And you'd rather have them now than the playoffs, right? They are undefeated. They were due for a loss, but you can't score 17 points against the football team, and you can't score 15 against the Bills and then lose to the Bengals in a primetime game. Going into the playoffs, that's just not the direction you want to be going in. The Chiefs going this way, the Steelers going this way. I don't know.
Not only that, but if you're Roethlisberger and you march down the field with all of those great wide receivers, and then you're on the 1 yard line and you don't even think about running the ball on the 1 yard line against the Colts, they have no run. They're a one-trick pony. And as great as those weapons are, because I love it. I think Roethlisberger, with the plethora of weapons he has, I agree with you. It's dynamic, and it could give you the firepower need to go up against Mahomes. But when you can't even run the ball for 3 yards just to set up a play-action pass, it's a huge issue in today's NFL. And the Chiefs' defense is better this year. You can go after Roethlisberger,
no doubt,
who is also about basically a statue at this point. I don't think the man actually has legs to move him anywhere. He's not going to be able to handle it. So give me, you know what? Luke chose an MVP guy. I'm going with an MVP guy. And, my favorite out of the AFC East, Scott.
He's really about Josh to say Allen. MVP guy.
Yeah.
MVP.
Man. Stephon Diggs said, he's my MVP. You know what? He's in the talks. He deserves to be in the talks. He's not going to have it by no means. But Josh Allen has played great this year for the Bills. This is their coming out year, and they are on fire. They are 8-1 in their last 9 games. Allen has thrown over 4,000 yards for 34 TDs. And as far as firepower goes, they have the run game too. The Buffalo Bills offense is unbelievable. And credit Brian Daboll, the offensive coordinator, for getting really creative. They do a bunch of trick plays. They are steady with what they do. They keep you off your feet, and they make defenses really have to guess. Stephon Diggs is breaking records for the Bills every single game. He is on fire. Cole Beasley has stepped up as well as a very consistent second guy for Allen to throw to. Gabriel Davis, Zach Moss, and Devin Singletary give you a run game that you have to at least respect and are also great in the passing game as well. And not only that, but the Bills are playing fun. If you watch the Monday night game against the Patriots, it's the Patriots. They're having a down year. But those guys came out with attitude. They came out with fun. They were enjoying themselves. And they believe in what they're doing. They believe in what's happening in Buffalo. And not only that, but they have the defense more so than any other team that we've been talking about that can go after Patrick Mahomes, and I think is going to be just as competitive as what the Steelers would do on defense or what the Ravens would do. You're talking about a team that 37 sacks, 88 QB hits, 65 passes defended, 12 interceptions, and 14 fumbles recovered. And in particular, that secondary is scary. Tre'Davious White is playing out of his mind.
Great point.
Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, Levy Wallace, all those guys can at least – you're not going to stop Mahomes. No one here is saying you're going to stop Mahomes, but you can negate Mahomes just a bit. And I think New Orleans showed you that if you get after him and then you match it with the offensive firepower, you can be in the game. And I think the Bills have that on both sides.
I like what you said. Go ahead, Scott.
I think that's an excellent point about the Bills secondary. And I think that's kind of the biggest thing that the Bills have going for them in a potential matchup with the Chiefs. But let me just get this straight. Matt, you're picking the Buffalo Bills, whose quarterback is Josh Allen.
Yeah.
And Luke, you're picking the Baltimore Ravens, whose quarterback is Lamar Jackson, who combined have a career total of 0 playoff wins.
You got to get them at some point.
They absolutely do. Hopefully, one would think. I don't think it's going to be this season. Actually, let me take that back. I think one of those two should just how the math works and works out. One of them should be able to win a playoff game. But here's why I come off on the Bills. I'm not completely sold on Josh Allen, as you both know. He has looked exceptional for about 6 to 7 games this year. His body of work as a whole this season has been great. There's no debating that. There's no equivocating that by saying, yeah, but he's been very good this season. And for 6 or 7 games, he's looked even better than that. He's looked great. But the games where he doesn't look great, he looks bad. I'm talking about a passer rating hovering between 70 and 78 for about 5 of the Bills' games this season. When you have a passer rating chart for a season that looks like a heartbeat monitor, that's not so great when it comes into playoffs.
Everyone's afforded a couple of those.
Go ahead.
Everyone's afforded a couple of those games. That's all I'll say.
Hey, speaking
you don't want it to happen. You don't want that game to be in the playoffs. You don't want that game to be in the playoffs. But,
correct.
Right, but any given night, the playoffs, it's not a series. It's one game and done. So, you never know who's going to show up.
Yeah, and for any team. Talk about – Scott, you're saying that we're picking QBs that don't have a history of success in the playoffs.
Correct.
We're picking QBs that can run more than 5 yards at over a mile pace, a 1 mile
how often,
pace.
How often do mobile quarterbacks win playoff games and Super Bowls? How often is that? How often is that a contributing factor?
How mobile is Pat Mahomes? How mobile is Aaron Rodgers?
They're also 2 of the greatest passers in NFL history.
Yeah, Josh Allen is doing that this year. Josh Allen is passing the ball and is being mobile. Ben Roethlisberger
might be one of the best
retirements.
Rodgers might be one of the best quarterbacks ever to get out of the pocket and just sprint for like a 10-yard first down. Literally,
and that's what Josh Allen gives you.
So let me get this straight. Y'all are comparing Allen to Mahomes and Rodgers.
I'm not comparing.
I'm not. He just was.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm saying,
I don't know why those two were brought up. I don't know why those two were brought up at all.
Because you're talking about mobile quarterbacks, and you're saying name a mobile quarterback that has won.
I didn't bring up mobile quarterbacks.
Those are the 2 best quarterbacks, arguably, in the history of the game are mobile. John Elway was a mobile guy too. I'm not saying Josh Allen is any of those guys, but Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson are way more mobile than Ben Roethlisberger. And
no one's debating that. I didn't say Ben Roethlisberger is mobile. I'm talking about career playoff history.
Yeah, I get that. But
things that Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson don't have.
Years.
In fact, the only time we've seen Josh Allen in a playoff game, he lost and didn't throw a touchdown. The only times we've seen Lamar Jackson in playoff games, he lost and looked bad. So, I mean, give me the Steelers. If we're talking about a threat to the Chiefs, a team that is going to make the Super Bowl, I'm not picking a team who's led by a quarterback who hasn't done a crumb in the playoffs up to this point.
Give me the better all-around team, which the Bills are. The Bills beat the Steelers. They don't have as good of a defense as the Steelers, but they're more dynamic on offense. Their quarterback is more mobile. And not only that,
no one's debating that.
Has the pieces that you need. Tre'Davious White in that secondary is going to help cover the deep pass and maybe try and negate Tyreek
I gave you
Hill.
the secondary. The secondary is great.
Let me try stepping in here. One thing I like that Matt said was that you can negate Pat Mahomes. You're not going to stop him, but you can slow him down. There's tons of footage out there of him just making the wrong throw or making a poor throw. If you're able to put some pressure, you can pressure. I mean, you can make any QB make a quick bad decision.
So look. Sorry, go ahead.
Let me finish.
Yeah, you got it.
If you can't say these guys have 0 wins. First of all, they're both in the playoffs. Both guys are low to mid 20s. Let them get some time and some opportunity. They both had opportunity and not made the most of it. But my point is that when you get to the playoffs, if a bad Mahomes shows up, or I should say negated Mahomes shows up, and a good Lamar Jackson shows up, or a good Josh Allen shows up, I mean, it could happen to anyone on any given night.
Let me just wrap this conversation up with this. I think both of you are getting to the point that if the best chance that an opponent has of knocking off the Chiefs is if you negate Mahomes. Is that right? Slow him down. Which team of these 3 has the best chance defensively to negate Mahomes? Give me the Steelers. I rest my case.
I would say the Ravens.
All I'll say is that you have to talk about that, but then you also have to ask yourself, what team has a better chance of beating Kansas City's defense? That's what comes into it. And don't give me the one-trick pony that can't run the ball. But while we're – just to finish this and move on, we're going to move on from playoffs, and we're actually going to talk and finish this episode by talking about the teams that didn't make the playoffs, that had no chance of making the playoffs, and have overall just had really bad seasons. You know, in the NFL, those teams can flip, and you've seen it. Miami's a great example. Not a playoff team last year. They're obviously fighting for a place this year. Out of the teams that have really just had bad seasons, who do you guys think is going to flip the switch and come in next year in 2021 and be a playoff contender? Scott, you can go first.
Yeah, I can go ahead and start. I don't know if there was a team hit harder by the injury bug this season than the San Francisco 49ers. 72 injuries on the defense alone and backups at every level of that unit, without even mentioning the extended time missed for injury for guys like Jimmy Garoppolo, Deebo Samuel, and the great George Kittle. Yeah, we've still seen the Niners beat the Rams and the Cardinals, two teams vying for playoff spots as of this weekend in the last month. And it starts with coaching. Kyle Shanahan is one of the best coaches and play callers in all of football, and his defensive coordinator, Robert Saleh, who I know Matt likes, will probably be a head coach somewhere next season. He might have done his best job this season, just navigating a myriad of key injuries to still field a very respectable defensive unit. People forget that this team was just in the Super Bowl last year with Jimmy Garoppolo as its quarterback, who I don't think anyone on the show thinks is a top 10 quarterback. And it's because the roster is loaded with talent. An offensive core of George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, and arguably the league's best fullback, Kyle Juszczyk, who Shanahan uses a multitude of different ways. With him calling plays is dynamic with a quarterback who simply takes care of the football. On the defensive side, they have Pro Bowl caliber players at every single level. Nicky Bosa up front, don't need to say more. Fred Warner's one of the best linebackers in the run and pass game in pro football, and Richard Sherman, who I pray doesn't retire this offseason, and Jason Verrett are both lockdown corners on the perimeter. Did you see what Jason Verrett just did to DeAndre Hopkins on Sunday? Sheesh. But, the 49ers have 6 wins on the year, and that's after being decimated by injury like no other. Expect them to, be a 10-plus win team again next season, with better health.
Yeah, I like your pick for the 49ers. Good team, always a solid team. But here's what I think. There's a team that I was really excited about this year, the Carolina Panthers. And they have, in my opinion, talk about Mahomes, whatever you want, the best player in the NFL, the most valuable player in the NFL. Christian McCaffrey, who got hurt at the beginning of the year, and that injury, he had a chance to come back. He played in a game, scored 3 touchdowns, got hurt again, and missed the rest of the season. So, McCaffrey, every time he comes in, you can tell a team, hey, we're handing him the ball up the middle, touchdown. He's going to run it down your throat. There's really nothing you can do to stop him. And now they got a first-year coach in Matt Rule, who I believe has done a tremendous job with this Panthers team. They've had some tough injuries as well. Bridgewater was hurt for a while now, and they just, it was a next man up mentality. Mike Davis filled in very well for Christian McCaffrey this year, and he's going to earn himself a paycheck with the way he played this year. But Matt Rule had these guys playing close games every night. They beat the football team. They went into Lambeau and lost to the Packers by 8. They lost to the Chiefs by 2. They lost to the Vikings by 1. They lost to the Falcons by a couple points. All their games have been close, and they've just been on the wrong side of things. I think next year when you get all your healthy guys back, Rule's seen these teams before. He's going to get another chance to game plan and bring everyone back together next year. I think this is a team that can make the playoffs.
You know what? I like both of your choices. I definitely like Carolina. Some of those weapons they have besides Christian McCaffrey have been very impressive. I like DJ Moore as well as a wideout.
Curtis Samuel, the way they use – I just have to mention real quick, the way they use Curtis Samuel coming on end arounds and screen passes and just let him create, I really like how they've kind of revitalized his career.
Swiss Army knife.
What?
He's a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah, yep. No, I love Curtis Samuel.
Absolutely. And, coaching has been a big part of both of those. I agree with both those picks. And I'm just going to go back out west for mine. I think coaching is an important thing too. I like Anthony Lynn with the LA Chargers, and I think the LA Chargers are a team that are going to bounce back after a clear down year. But the Chargers last year were even a team where I think if Phillip Rivers protects the football a little bit better, they're a playoff team. And going into this season, you thought that they might be able to do something, but they're 6-9. And they've had clearly a down year, but Justin Herbert is going to be Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year. He's having an insane season. And of those 9 losses, 7 of those losses were by a touchdown or less. And it was ridiculous how many they lost by 1 point. And so we're talking about a field goal, and they've had kicking issues. So I think that those are games that you give them back, they're going to win, and you might be looking at a team that has only 3 or 4 losses rather than the 9. And not only that, but Herbert is just electric. I mean, he broke the rookie TD record. He's going to be rookie of the year. They have a plethora of weapons around him. If they go out and they establish, and get a run game going for next season, more than just, Austin Eckler as more of a passing threat than he is really a runner. And not only that, but they bounced back from some of the injuries that they had, including, starting center Pouncey, and Ingram got hurt during the season. And they've had a few lingering ones, not any that were out for the full season, but in key moments, they've had injuries to guys that definitely take them above and beyond what they were. I think that you have to look at the Chargers as, a team to be expecting to win 10 games next season and be competitive for a playoff spot and continue the reign that is Justin Herbert out in LA and bring the Chargers back to playoff football.
I can promise you the Chargers aren't going to win 10 games. I like the Chargers. I really like Justin Herbert. I think they can be a good team, but they're not winning 10 games. And my only knock on them is I'm not sure about Anthony Lynn as a head coach.
Hey, Luke, let me cut in. I love that. So not only is it hilarious, but you're dead on right, because I think while Justin Herbert has shown that he's going to be a great quarterback in the league for a long while, I think Anthony Lynn went and got himself fired this year. The amount of times that the Chargers had late game leads and
their clock management was awful.
And when you have a team that is talented and has a rookie quarterback who's playing out of his mind, who's playing lights out, you don't get to finish how the Chargers finished this season. So I think if the Chargers can bring in the right head coach, a quarterback-minded head coach you can pair with Herbert, I think the sky's the limit for the Chargers moving forward. But I'm not sure about Anthony Lynn's future there, unfortunately.
I mean, this guy compared his team to Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
Which I don't know about this, man.
You know what? Then maybe the coaching is the issue, but I think put it down right now. 10 wins. I think they're going to be close. But this has been the holiday edition of Chalk Talk. We'll be back next week to talk more football and all other sports. Thanks for joining us, and you guys have a good rest of your day.